Bueno, buenos días, good morning, egunon. Tenemos aquí entre nosotros a los actores Ryan Gosling y Claire Foy, que han venido a presentar First Man, que está en la sección Perlas del Festival de Cine de San Sebastián. Si la gente de fotografía puede ir sentándose para que comencemos con la rueda de prensa. Me imagino que tendréis muchísimas preguntas, entonces levantad bien alto la mano para que os vea, ¿vale? You ready? You listening? Yeah.
Si por el proceso de trabajo y de creación, de composición de este personaje de tan gran calado, si tiró de hemerotecas o se atenía a lo que le marcaba el guión y el director. Y la segunda cosa es si se embarcaría en uno de estos viajes a la Luna que creo que está proyectando un multimillonario que quiere invitar a celebrities también a viajar con él a la Luna, si se arriesgaría a este otro viaje.
I think I'm busy that day. And in terms of I think the question is about preparation for the role, or
Yep.
how we went about it. Did we stick to
Like,
Right.
did you research a lot in order to prepare for the role? Or?
Right, sorry. There's a question about documents, though. Okay.
There's someone talking in our ear, by the way. We're not just...
Yeah. We just thought it'd be cool to wear these. So, you know, I've never had more help on a film or more, you know, access to more research material. First of all, there was Jim Hanson's book, which is a incredible, entitled First Man. He was a friend of Neil's, and it's a very, very well-researched and very, very helpful tool. But also we had access to his family, his sons. The late Janet Armstrong was involved until she unfortunately passed recently. Many friends of Neil's, co-workers. So it was an all-hands-on-deck situation, and everybody was happy to help. And both Neil and Janet's legacy was very important to a lot of people. It was very important to them that we get it right.
Sí, hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Quería saber, quería saber qué es lo que sintieron ambos actores cuando supieron que iban a interpretar a estos personajes, bueno, sobre todo Ryan Gosling, a este personaje tan relevante en la historia. Y luego, ya como curiosidad, quería saber si hubo algún tipo de broma, algún tipo de chanza sobre Stanley Kubrick en el rodaje y esa leyenda sobre que fue él quien rodó el alunizaje. Gracias.
Are there
Any Stanley Kubrick jokes?
you love a Stanley Kubrick
I
joke.
do. They're my favourite guy. No, none.
There weren't. Sorry to
Well,
disappoint
any
you.
laughs. We never laugh.
How'd you feel?
About playing Janet?
Yeah.
Well, I had the much easier job because Janet's story was sort of the untold one and the one that people kind of didn't recognise or have any ownership over. So I just sort of felt really honoured to be able to kind of give specifically those women who stayed at home and who supported those men a voice, really, in the film. But you know, there is an amount of pressure when you're portraying something that people remember and feel very strongly about, and you know, a person as well. I'm pretty much speaking for Ryan now, but who, you know, people.
That's for the best.
Because people feel like they have their own interpretation of what that man means to them, I suppose.
Yeah, and you know, it was a great opportunity, but an even bigger responsibility. You know, we know that, you know, ever since I learned what the moon was. I think I learned that someone named Neil Armstrong walked on it, but I knew very little about him or his family or the story, and it's really it's so extraordinary and certainly well worth the tribute that the film attempts to pay to it.
Okay. Yeah, you can ask.
Hola, quería preguntar a Ryan Gosling qué le ha parecido la acogida que ha tenido en la ciudad y también si sabe decir algo en español, si sabe español.
Was the question, what do I think about Spanish? Oh, I think it's so beautiful, and it's spoken in my house every day, and hopefully one day it will be spoken by me in my house as well. And in terms of the reaction to the film, I haven't heard anything, so I'm just gauging from you right now. How was it received? Well, they didn't ask us to leave anyway, so that's...
I think he also asked about San Sebastian, if you have been here, you have seen some part of the city, or...
No, we were just lamenting about that. It looks so beautiful from the window. Okay. And I wish we could come back. I mean, I'd love to come back at another time where get to spend some time here. It's so beautiful. Excuse me.
Beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hola,
at the back.
Buenos días, bienvenidos ambos al Festival de Cine de San Sebastián. Mi pregunta es para Ryan Gosling. Sería en relación a cómo definiría al personaje que interpreta. Leí hace poco, quizás era una época más optimista o más valiente incluso. Leí hace poco que la mayoría de nosotros tenemos teléfonos móviles con mayor capacidad que parte del material que se empleó para alunizar. Un poco, ¿cómo definiría o cómo ha estudiado al personaje de Armstrong? ¿Cómo lo definiría usted al personaje? Gracias.
Neil was a very layered person, and I think to a lot of people who worked with him, he seemed like someone that was sort of unknowable in a way. He seemed remote, I guess, but it was very important to his family and to the people that knew him well that we sort of find a way to peel back some of the layers and show the man behind the myth. And he's an extraordinary amount of admirable qualities, and both him and Janet, they were really an exceptional team, and it was an honor to get to try and reveal some of the many layers that they had.
Hello, here at the back. I think that the film reflects like the start of the decline of the American dream. I would like you to comment on this, and how do you see the American dream today in the States?
Claire?
As a non-American, I can only view it from the outside. I think that, especially during those kind of 10 years of the space race, I think there was an idea about the projected image of what everyone wanted to be. And especially Janet was involved in that, in the idea that you were a man and wife, and you had children, you lived in the perfect house, and everything was perfect, and everyone was happy, and nobody was depressed or sad or anything like that. And that's why I think I really love the film, is that idea that you see the reality of the situation as opposed to the dream that I think a lot of people want to believe in. And I think people still do now. I think people want to believe in the perfection of something instead of the reality of it, because the reality is a bit too scary and a bit too hard. But we don't really have a European or English dream, I don't feel. It's a very American thing. I think, I don't know. Is anyone American in the room? who can... You're not.
I think that the film is it's not a comment on our current time, and it tries to reflect the politics of the time. But what was most important to us was to focus on Neil and Janet. Their stories are worth the focus and tribute that the film tries to pay to them. I think that the instinct that Damien had to try and create as immersive an experience into just the personal experience of them was a really inspired one. It was something that I felt like, that was the main objective, for me anyway, was to try and keep the focus on Neil and Janet and to honor that instinct that Damien had when he first sort of thought of making this film.
Hello, Ryan. I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump said he would never watch the film because it's not showing the moment when the astronauts are planting the flag, the USA flag, on the moon. I would like to ask you if you have an answer for that, and if do you care that Trump are going to watch your film or not?
I think the discussion around, in general, the discussion around this is almost entirely amongst those who haven't seen the film. And I'm just very excited that the film is coming out because I feel like, the film speaks for itself. Sorry.
Hi, Ryan. How playing Neil helped you grow as an actor?
How did playing Neil? Well, it was a challenge. Absolutely a challenge. Again, there's a great depth of to Neil, and it's a challenge to try and convey that the many layers to his and facets to his personality, the extraordinary amount of humility and courageousness and so on. So, anytime that you have an opportunity to try and understand those qualities and reflect them, benefits you certainly, both as an actor and as a person.
Hello, I have a question for Claire. You've been the Queen of England. Here, obviously, this is Ryan's story. What was interesting for you about your character, and how did you work to give so much depth to it, even when obviously the story is about him, technically?
I was I don't know, I feel like in order to tell the story of Neil Armstrong, of the man, which I really think, for me, that's what the film is the person really who ended up doing this extraordinary thing. You can't ignore his loved ones, and you can't ignore the people that ultimately supported and helped and loved him to do that, I suppose. And you could argue that if, for so many reasons, Neil was kind of a survivor, really, because he was never really meant to be the first man on the moon. It's by, lots of tragedy and luck got him there, I suppose. And so you could sort of argue that if he'd never met Janet, would he have ever had his children? Would he have ever lost his daughter? Would he have ever gone onto the space program? You don't, where does it begin and end, I suppose? So I feel like Janet's integral to his life. And she's definitely integral to that family and to those boys. And, I just, was glad to go to work every day and so honoured to tell this story and to represent her, really. There was I didn't have to find any depth. It was all there. it was all in the script and it was all in getting to know her that I just admired her and them, and just, yeah, I was just really lucky to do it.
Hi, Ryan. Congrats, Claire, for this film. I have a question for Ryan. Space must feel very lonely, but when Ryan Gosling is back to Earth, every time he steps out of a car, it feels like an earthquake due to the noise of his fans screaming. And how does that feel, Ryan?
I hate to disappoint you, but it's not like that every time I step out of a car. And I spend most of my time trying to get car seats in and out of cars. You know, the reception we have had here has been really special and unique, and it's not that's not an everyday experience. Very appreciated.
Bueno, enhorabuena a los dos por la película. Yo quería hacer una pregunta a Ryan, precisamente porque, aunque la película, como estamos aquí comentando, intenta contar un poco la historia de los personajes que no conocemos, la historia familiar y personal de los mismos, también hay unas escenas espaciales de misiones y de entrenamiento muy espectaculares y muy físicas. Me gustaría saber cómo había sido ese proceso de rodaje y de preparación con Damien para esas escenas concretas. Muchas gracias.
You know, it's really to Damien's credit the way that those mission scenes feel in the film, and the experience that we had shooting them. You know, he was, you know, he just went above and beyond what I think most filmmakers would feel they had to do in order to capture the sequence. You know, an extraordinary amount of research. Always, you know, the capsules, great detail put into making them as accurate as possible, having technicians who were involved in the missions themselves on set with us as technical advisors. You know, NASA being involved as well, you know, trips for us to NASA, which were just mind-bending experiences. Having people on set while we're shooting those who had been to the moon and could tell you what it was like. You know, Damien also went out of his way to have this LED screen instead of a green screen, so everything that was happening outside of our window was, you know, as close a facsimile as you could have. You know, most of the dialogue from those sequences is actual, you know, transcripts from the Capcom, from those specific missions. So it was extremely immersive. It was a very, very special and surreal experience, and I'm so excited that Damien also made the choice to shoot it in a POV style, because now the audience gets to have that experience as well. You know, the audience feels as though it's them getting sent to the moon, and it's a pretty exciting experience. So I'm excited for people to have it.
Hola, buenos días. Enhorabuena por la película. Mi pregunta es, me gustó mucho el elemento final de cuando él saca la pulsera de su niña y la tira en la luna. Quería saber si eso tenía algún tipo de base real o si es una invención del guión. Dicho de otras maneras, si aparte de poner la primera huella en la luna, Neil Armstrong fue el primero que tiró en un cráter de la luna un elemento humano. Para Claire quería preguntarle, se echan falta, quizás es una pregunta para el guionista, pero que en ese matrimonio durante todo ese tiempo hubiera algún tipo de fricción natural de las parejas que tienen, todas las tienen. Si esa explicación que ha dado de que, bueno, de que era una época en la que todo era así y perfecto, no echó en falta en su personaje alguna fricción normal, digamos, de sentimiento de pareja con el personaje de Neil Armstrong. Gracias.
We're going to need a few hours to deal with this, to properly answer that question, those many questions. In terms of the bracelet moment, you know, the astronauts were allowed to bring personal items. Some of those items, they divulged what they were, some they did not. Neil also spent a certain amount of time on the moon alone, and it's unknown what he did there. And so in working closely with his family and people that knew him, I think, and Josh Singer, the writer, and Damien could better answer this question, but they deciphered that this was, it was not something that was out of the realm of possibility. It was something that Neil, you know, never fully divulged what all of the items that he brought personally to the moon. And so both they and the family, from what I understand, agreed that that was you know, a reasonable possibility or something that was worth exploring in the film.
If I've got it right, the friction element of their marriage, what I loved most about the script when I read it was that I felt like it wasn't a perfect depiction of what a marriage should be or what a relationship should be. I really felt like it was real. And I mean that in a way that, you know, that they had moments of joy and happiness and triumph and shared experience, but they also had moments when they weren't really in the room together, or they were really resentful or confused or bitter, or, you know, that other person felt like a stranger. But yet, there's sort of hope in that. That they had, you know, especially in the story that we tell, a really traumatic and horrific loss. And I think that their relationship was changed forever. But I feel like anyway at the end of the film that there's a hope. It's not that, you know, it's going to be a happy ever after in the classic sort of Hollywood version of someone's marriage, but there's a hope that their relationship is not going to be what it was, but it may be something different, and that doesn't mean that it's not brilliant in its own way.
Hello, question for Ryan. This is not the first time you're working with Damien. If you compare the filming with La La Land, for example, what was the most challenging part in this case? And what was the biggest difference when you were filming? Obviously, they are completely different projects, so what was the biggest difference? Thank you.
I think the responsibility to get this right was the biggest difference. You know, it's very different when you're working on a film where you know they're fictionalized characters, and you're able to and have the freedom to create them as you see fit. In this, it was wildly different, and I think the biggest challenge was knowing that Neil and Janet's sons were going to see the film and not just see a movie, but see some, you know, a reflection of their parents, and it just felt important to honor that. And although that was a tall order and it was you know overwhelming at times, it was a very clear guiding star, and very different from La La Land. But Damien, in terms of the difference, you know, it's obviously very different movies, very different styles, but in some way very similar in his approach, in that the style is born from the story and what feels appropriate to communicate the story, and he's able to work at very large scales, but still somehow keep the environment on the set feeling very intimate and creative.
Hola, buenos días. Me llama mucho, es una pregunta para los dos actores, me llama mucho la atención que el cine de ciencia ficción más interesante o más importante de los últimos años se distingue por una cosa, y es que las grandes misiones espaciales se abordan desde el duelo, desde el luto, desde la pérdida de un ser querido. Películas como Gravity o Arrival, o en este caso la película que estáis presentando. Me gustaría saber si en algún momento os cuestionasteis esto, si lo hablasteis con Damien Chazelle, porque me parece, no sé si sintomático de estos tiempos, que como estas grandes misiones se enfoquen desde lo íntimo y desde un proceso tan complicado como la pérdida. Me gustaría saber vuestra opinión. Muchas gracias.
Well, you know, in the specific case of this film, you know, that is the reality that Neil and Janet were dealing with, and I was surprised to learn that. You know, all that I was familiar with were some of the more famous images of them smiling for the cameras, and I had no idea the depth of grief that they were experiencing and privately, and what they were struggling with and sacrificing. And you know, I think it felt just to be truthful to their story, and you know, that was something that we had to honor and try and, you know, reflect and not just have as a scene in the movie, but obviously something that is unimaginable and would never leave you and would find its way into all aspects of your life. As to why maybe there's similarities in other films, I can't, I'm not sure, you know. I know that when I had the opportunity to talk to some of these astronauts, there's a perspective that they all want to try and share, and you know, some of them have said that you know, they went to explore the moon, but they ended up discovering the Earth.
Yeah, I think a lot of them said as well that it was, you know, not a religious experience, but a spiritual experience, because you are able to look back at this beautiful planet that you live on, and if that's got anything to do with loss or tragedy or anything like that, you know, I can understand why people would go to lengths in order to find some meaning in a life which seems to have lost any meaning at all.
Hello. I'd like to know two things. I think one of the most emotional moments in the movie is related to the last question. When you had to say goodbye to the kids, what was it like to work with these kids to make them feel like they were losing probably his dad? And then what was the set like? It felt real, or how much real it felt?
Mm-hmm.
They were all the sets are real. So they built entirely, sort of almost a blueprint, or both the houses, so the cabin that we had, and the house, which was amazing. So you were living, and the sets were incredible. Nathan, the designer, was amazing. So all the sets were exactly as they would have been, really beautiful. And the boys, I don't think that Damien ever tried to make them. I think it's different. You don't have to teach children to act. They're just much better than any other. They're much more real. And so you don't want to kind of say your dad's going away and he may never come back to a child, because I think that it's very difficult to know what's pretend and what's not, I think. So instead we had kind of like just 2 weeks of improvisation before we even started shooting, which Damien filmed, where we all just got to know each other really. And I think they felt I know they felt comfortable with us in the end, because they definitely felt comfortable. And so they were just beautiful boys, and so open and not afraid, I think, was the ultimate goal, because you don't want a child to feel afraid in the company of, you know, because film sets can be a bit scary. I loved working with them. It felt like a proper unit, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's more a question for Damien too, in terms of how he worked with the kids, because I wasn't really involved in that, but I never got the impression like he was trying to force a certain emotion onto them. He more was trying to create an environment where they could just be kids, and I think, if it's not my favorite, it's certainly one of my favorite, but it's probably my favorite scene in the movie is with Claire, and she says that your dad's going to the moon, and he goes, "Oh, cool, can I go play?" You know, and I felt like that it really encapsulated sort of in some way so much of what we were trying to get to, and you know, I think that's sort of the direction I think Damien seemed to be wanting to take those scenes.
Ok, vamos con la última pregunta.
Sí. Ryan, ¿qué tal? Soy Gonzalo Hurtado de Perú. Bueno, está más cerca de la luna, espero que vayas a Perú pronto. Mi pregunta es la siguiente. Mi pregunta es, A Demian, al director, a Demian Chazelle, le gusta mucho llevar a sus personajes al límite, los lleva a poner mucho contra la pared, como ha pasado en Whiplash, como ha pasado en La La Land. En esta película se siente un poco más moderado el protagónico en relación a esas otras películas. No sé si tal vez Demian tuvo en la cabeza en algún momento llevar el personaje de Armstrong a un nivel mucho más intenso. No sé si lo conversaron o fue una opción, ¿no? Esa es mi pregunta.
What's that?
You went to the moon.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense, man.
I remember physically being taken to the wall a few times too, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess, what's the question? I'm sorry.
Sí, la pregunta era, a Demian le gusta poner a sus personajes siempre en un punto de límite, los lleva, digamos, los saca totalmente de su zona de confort, los exagera a veces de alguna manera, ¿no? Los pone demasiado intensos. Entonces, yo sentí que ese personaje tuyo de James Armstrong, que está muy bien interpretado, pero lo siento más moderado en relación a otros protagónicos que ha manejado Demian. Entonces, yo quería saber si en algún momento te planteó hacer que el papel de Armstrong fuera más radical, que esté más fuera de sí al momento de llevar a cabo su sueño, ¿no? de llegar a la luna, ¿no?
I think that we were just trying to be accurate. We weren't. I don't remember hearing Damien compare this film to the other films he'd made or to the other characters. It was really just about, you know, trying to accurately reflect Neil and Janet and using as much as we could, you know, the family to help, you know, as our barometer of truth.
Vale, pues si os parece lo dejamos aquí. Vamos a darles un aplauso, ¿no?